And Viv, thanks for this because I know it was it was thrown out there in the Floristry
Yeah.
Geek group, and it was just like, do you know what? Let's pull people together and
Mm.
do it. And do you know what? Get to know each other. Okay, so let me see a lot of the questions, and I'm going to hit this first because I probably of all of the questions that were asked, pricing is seems to be the biggest question, and that could take you months to go
Yep.
through pricing everything. So I tried to break it down a little bit. The first of all was somebody asked, do you believe in standardized pricing? Or having a standardized pricing across the board would work, or should every florist charge to suit their own businesses and their own overheads? What's your opinion on that?
I think standardized pricing within your own business can work. So if you work out your prices over the year, that avoids you having those famine and feast moments when, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas prices are higher. You can standardize your own prices across the year so you get the same size bouquet all year round. And I do know florists who do that and it works very successfully. But I don't think as an industry we can standardize it because we all have a different demographic, we all have different overheads, we all have different suppliers. It simply can't work. I mean, I
Yeah.
do think we have to charge a fair price and we all need to be making money and not undercutting. And I did a mentoring session this morning and I said to her, every January I check into Flora's prices to see what they're charging because they've already done the legwork. So why am I doing it?
That's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah.
And they
And like
take
when it comes
an
to
average
weddings,
across the country. So it kind of evens out the demographic a little bit that way.
yeah, yeah. And when it comes to weddings, so and this there was, as I said, all of these questions were coming in about pricing. What percentage profit should a florist be looking at?
Well, I was always taught that there should be a third cost, a third labour, and a third profit. So you need to be making two-thirds.
Yeah. So multiply by three.
Yeah, at least.
Multiply by
Yeah,
three.
yeah,
And here in Ireland, a lot of them are doing by four,
yeah, yeah. And
you
I can
know.
understand why because
But in
prices
Ireland,
are
yeah,
so
everything is,
volatile
yeah,
and
yeah,
you've got more costs because of the extra transport it takes to get to Ireland. It's not as
yeah,
easy for you as it is for us in the mainland at
yeah.
all.
But you know my thinking on it, and I could be completely wrong, right? We say a rose, and let's just break this down really easily. A rose is costing me a fiver today, right? And on Valentine's Day, it's costing me a tenner. Today, I multiply the rose by three, and it's
Yeah.
it's 15 euro I'm selling the rose for. On Valentine's Day, it's cost me a tenner, and I'm selling it for 30 euros. So now I'm making 20 euro. I don't really, I'm still happy to make the 10 euro on it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
And
that's where I think you really have to look at your business.
yeah,
And
you do.
it's not always just multiply by three, multiply by
No, you
four.
need to know what your operating costs are, first of all, because they're different for everybody. And until you know what your operating costs are, you can't possibly know whether you're making a profit. And I'm shocked when I mentor how many florists have no idea what their operating costs are. It's the
Yeah.
very basic thing you need to know.
And I think studio florists are the worst for
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because they're working from either their home or a shed at the back of their home, and they're not thinking of the business side of it.
no.
Where if you're paying rent and you're paying rates and you're paying water charges, you're more tuned into your your costs of running the business.
Absolutely.
So I do definitely think the studio florist, it's something you really need to look at.
Yeah,
Wages came up. Now, I don't know whether that was wages as in employing staff wages or wages for yourself,
yeah.
as like an experienced florist, and then comparing it to a florist that's just trained and maybe just starting out. What do you what would you expect to be making an hour on an hourly rate as a new florist coming into the market and a florist with a lot of experience?
I think if you're self-employed, you've got to be on £18 an hour because by the time you've taken your tax, your national insurance, and your insurances off that, you're only making minimum wage.
Yeah.
So it's got to be at least that, even as a new florist. And obviously, if you're working in a shop, you're only going to be getting minimum wage. You're not going to be getting anything else.
Yeah. And is that definitely is that is the case in the UK? Like
Yeah,
florists are only coming
yeah,
home at minimum
yeah,
wage.
yeah.
And
Very
I
much
think the
so.
problem there is because they're not charging enough,
Mm, yeah.
you
And I
know?
do think there's a perception amongst employers that that's what everybody's paying, so that's what they'll pay. Do you know what I mean? I think employers have to up the game a little bit as well. You know,
Yeah.
'cause if you're expecting somebody to be trained, why should they be getting the same price as somebody who can do a job that needs no training?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, true, true. Guys, any questions on pricing, like as with that, what we've covered so far, please throw it into the chat. And Jeanette, if there's anything coming up, let me know. Another question was asked again around pricing as well, is advertising your prices. This girl particularly said that she doesn't put it up on her website because she feels that other florists are going to be looking at her and are going to undercut her. And she says also stuff change. I don't want to put the listed price up as seasonality changes the prices a lot. What's your opinion on that?
I can understand that. I mean, obviously, if you've got a website, you've got to have your prices on there. If you've got a shop on your website, so all my prices are there for anybody to see because if they want to buy something, they want to know what they're paying, don't they? Um, so I know a lot of wedding florists don't like to put their prices up there, but the way I look at and I think you can get around that by offering to send a price guide to a bride that inquires, but you don't know how many people you're missing out that aren't inquiring because they can't see your prices. I think we need to not be concerned about what other florists are doing. You
Yeah,
do you, is my attitude. I'm not the cheapest florist in my area. I'm probably not the most expensive either. In fact, I do know there is a florist quite close to me who's only done a 3-day career change course and charges more than I do for a wedding bouquet.
yeah.
Good on her. If she can get it, good luck
And
to
if
the
she's
girl.
getting it, I done a podcast with a florist today, and we actually talked about pricing. And this florist is quite a funky florist. She does very way out, and she's a bit of a love-hate florist. People either love her or hate her. She done her 100th wedding there the other day, so she's doing okay,
Mm,
and she's actually doing very well. And we talked about pricing, and she says, "My prices are my prices. If they can't afford me, they can't afford me."
yeah,
She says, "I don't discount. I don't." She says,
no,
because they get what the value for what
yeah.
they pay. And I think that's very important to not be worrying about what other people are charging or undervaluing yourself, I
Mm,
think is huge.
mhm.
And do you know, I think as florists and probably women as well, we do feel that we have to justify when a couple book the hotel, this is my when I talk to our florists on our courses. When a couple books a hotel, they don't question the room charge. They don't question the meal that the steak is this price and the turkey and ham is this price. When they go in to buy their dress, they don't try and barter with the designer to say, "Can I get it cheaper?" They do it to florists and they do it to makeup artists. I don't know why.
But I think they do it to us because they think they can,
They
because we give
can,
them the
yeah, and
impression
probably
that,
got away with it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think
you
they
know.
think, because we're all quite, you tend to find florists are quite open and friendly and enthusiastic. And I think sometimes that makes you look like you're a bit of a soft touch. And I had a groom last week say to me, "What's your best price?" I said, "The one you got given. That's your
Yeah,
best price." I
yeah.
don't ever discount, ever, not a
No.
cent.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And like we even with us with the courses, like people say to us, "Oh, if I book all 4 modules, do I get a discount?" And no, because we actually think it's worth more than we're
Mm.
charging.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
And you know
So
I do because I told you that.
you did, in fairness. But yeah, so and I actually think it gives you that little bit more, like as Carolyn said today on the podcast, she said, "I'd rather do one wedding and make good money than to
Yep,
do 3 weddings and make lots of little amounts." And she says,
yep.
working, 2 and 3 times as hard for her money. And she says, "I can do that one wedding and give that couple the best service." And the when you hear her podcast and you hear like how she looks after her couples, you're sort of like, yeah, well, that's obviously why she charges what she charges.
Mm,
But she's getting it. Like
mm,
she has 2026 is nearly booked up and she has 17 weddings in for 2027. Like that's
yep.
just incredible. And as I said, when you follow her and you see her, the Florist on the Hill is her business. She's a funky florist. She's not your flimsy, whimsical, type of florist. And she's an Irish redhead, a dub through and through. She's a great girl. She did her training with us as well, just putting that out there too. Okay, so that's again the list. I actually read something as well, Viv, about posting your prices on your website that actually it increases your sales by
Yeah,
posting your prices on your website.
I can see why that would, because if you're looking You want to, none of us like those shops where there's no prices in the window because we assume we can't afford it, don't we? So then we walk
Yeah.
away. So if you're giving, even if you give a range, of prices start from, you don't have to be completely specific because sometimes that's really hard in wedding work because every wedding bouquet is different.
Yeah.
But I think if you give people an idea of what you're going to charge, and if other florists look at it, so what? They're not you, you're
Yeah.
not them.
No. And it really is a case, and like I'm sure in England it's the same, but like we have Pennies and we have Marks and Spencers and we have
Yeah,
Brown Thomas, and you're talking three different
yeah,
levels of shops. They all sell white knickers that do exactly the same thing.
yeah,
Why does somebody shop at Brown Thomas for white knickers and why does somebody go to Pennies? So I'm sure
yeah,
Harrods, I suppose in England would be our Brown Thomas,
yeah,
and I don't know what would be Pennies, but Primark, that's
yeah,
Pennies.
yeah,
So there's customers out there for everybody,
always.
and I think not being afraid of charging for it.
And the secret is knowing
Another
which
lot
one
of,
you are. That's the secret is
yes,
knowing which one you are and who your customers are and how to attract them. I've got a friend who is a very budget friendly florist. She's got an amazing business. She
yeah,
bangs out elopement packages and wedding packages like you would not believe. She's making a killing.
yeah,
Good on her.
making a killing with it
Yeah,
because there is customers out there that
always.
want that flowers are not the most important
No,
thing at their wedding.
no, not at all.
They know they need to have them, but they're not the
Yeah,
most important. And that bride or that florist can probably bang together 10 bouquets in a day,
yeah,
and have 10 mini weddings a day on a
yeah.
Saturday and Sunday. Jeanette, have we any questions on pricing before we move on a little bit from that?
Well, just a few little comments. So, again, anyone watching that hasn't introduced themselves, do it in the comments. But so far, we have, I can't remember the first girl's name from New Forest. We've Hazel from Wales, Olivia from Scotland, another Hazel from Kildare, Kirsty from Scotland, Francis from Dublin, Emma from the UK, Pauline from Fort William. Not sure if that's in Australia. Emma
Scotland.
in Essex, Claire in Durham, Pamela in Cork. Valerie in Ashburn. Now, Maura in Canada, she said standard pricing in Canada is multiplied by 3 for fresh and multiplied by 2.5 for hard goods. Now, I have heard that quite a lot. I find that complicated when you do two different markups on your hard goods and your flowers. I prefer to kind of go the same across the board. But again,
Yeah.
it depends on the individual. We've Leonie in from Cavan, full of praise for what Viv is saying. We've Gemma, and she says that if you multiply by 3, does that include the labour and the sundries? And in the world that she lives in, I'm not sure what part of the world she is. The world she lives in, they're on multiplied by 2. Now, it's not possible to do weddings multiplied by 2. Definitely
No,
not. In
not make money. No,
nearly on the multiplied by 4. But like my opinion is that the markup multiplied by 3 should be on the sundries as well. And for some people that are going to add a labour charge, I would rather multiply by 4 right across the board and include that as my labour charge.
yeah,
But my labour charge doesn't include my transport or the extras. So
no.
any feedback on that so far? I have a few more now.
I can understand that there are lots of different ways to get to your final figure. So you could do multiply by 2.5 and then add your labour charge, and you'll end up with the same as if you times it by 4. So it's up to you as to what you're comfortable doing the maths with. But I never ever include anything outside of that takes me more time. So no setup, no breakdown, no transport, no extra hireage, no freelance fees. They all come separately.
Agree. Now, Moira from Toronto also said that when she went to her flower school in Toronto, they were told multiply by 5. And Moira, I completely agree. There is florists in Ireland and probably in the UK as well who do have to multiply by 3. But again, like what I have a few points there that Viv came out with. One was about knowing your operating costs. If you don't know what your operating cost is, you cannot work out what your markup needs to be. And your operating cost is working out every expense from literally buying the windowing for cleaning the windows, like every expense, rents, rates, insurance, wages, your wages, everything that's involved in running your flower shop, adding it up over a 12-month period and dividing it by 46 girls, not 52. Because the way it is, to cover yourself, like last week, there was lots of businesses in Ireland had to close on the Monday because the roads were too bad and the ice and the frost and the snow. And we're going to have lots more of that. And also holiday time. So you definitely have to know your operating costs. We cover a lot of that as part of the module 4. Another great point that Viv made was about checking the Interflora because they've done all the legwork. I thought that was a feckin' brilliant tip. Something I actually never thought of doing myself. And I'm going to rob that tip and I'm going to tell all my customers to do the same.
I'm
And
quite happy to say I'm a
I thought
lazy
Viv was
cow, so
great.
if somebody else is going to do the work, I'll let them.
Exactly. And another great thing that you said was when somebody asked you what was your best price and you said the feckin' price I've just given you
Yeah.
is the best price. Like you're dead right. Now Francis said that some customers don't realise how much
Zoom
flowers
on this
cost.
invitation for the prices for weddings.
Hang on.
That's what
No.
I missed
Okay.
that.
No, it was just somebody talking in the background. Their mic was on.
All
Go on,
right.
Yvonne.
So Francis said customers don't realise how much flowers actually cost or the amount of time that they put in. And that is true. Now we've actually, well, Deirdre has actually wrote a blog on that. And explain the blog, Deirdre, that you have wrote, because it's kind of a twisty blog, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a blog talking about like why are wedding flowers so expensive, written for your wedding couple, but in favor of the florist. So it's sort of, and because we have it's a blog that I actually done it a couple of years ago and I updated last year because I'd have florists from all over the world saying, "Can I share that? Can I share that?" Because it wasn't written by them and they're not justifying their prices to their couples. I have written the blog but it's in favor. So and at the end of it, it sort of goes on about I've also another one about DIYing your wedding and like how wonderful it is to DIY your wedding and like make sure like the day beforehand don't book to get your nails done because you're going to be doing this and don't be booking to get your makeup done the morning of the wedding because you're going to be still making your buttonholes and don't forget that visit to the wholesalers and maybe some of the flowers might be dead and you have to send. So it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of one about DIYing your wedding and yes, it's such a great idea, but at the end of it, it's like, book your local florist. But the amount of people that read the blog but didn't actually read it, and the amount of comments that I got, oh, you're a florist, and you're telling people to DIY your wedding, but you needed to read it on further. So, and again, there's nothing to stop you guys writing more or less the same sort of stuff because, first of all, it brings traffic to your website, but it's educating your couples as
And
to
maybe if Celine is watching, which she is, because Celine says she loves Florist on the Hill, Celine might put the two links in the in the
the
comments, or
chat.
maybe Deirdre when you're sending
You
out
know
the
what? I'll
replay
send them out when
tomorrow.
I'm sending it. I have this on record and I will send out the replay and I'll send the link to those blogs and the replay because you'll probably have a lot to take in today anyway. And the chat doesn't save for the replay. So yeah, so Celine, relax, have your glass of wine, don't worry about it.
I've one more point and then I'm going to go back and I'll let Viv come back on. But Jane, I'm not sure where she's from. Poor Jane. Jane has a full-time job and I'm going to call it her real job, right? So she has a full-time job, but she's also trying to be a full-time florist. She seems to be very busy, but she can't do it on the side and she can't reduce her hours into her real job. So I don't really know what she wants. I think she's looking for a cloning service. Um,
Cloning.
Cloning. So I'm going to go back to the messages and let you take over.
Okay, super. Great messages there and great questions. Love to love your guys' input as well because it makes such a difference. Okay, going to talk a little bit about confidence and particularly with this particular, did I write down? I didn't, I actually didn't write down who asked the questions, but this was around funeral work. And I know we did say we'd concentrate more on weddings, but a good few funeral questions came in as well. She doesn't like her designs. Now, sometimes she says a couple of days later, she sort of accepts them that they are. But she's sort of like, how does she get confident more about her wedding work? Or sorry, her funeral work, not wedding work.
I think the trouble is we attach such a lot of emotional input to funerals, don't we, as florists? We understand what they mean to our customers. So I think we're already on the back foot then anyway, because we're, frantically trying to make it the most perfect tribute. What you have to remember is they don't know floristry like we know floristry. So we're always going to be harder on what we do than our customers are,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
actually, because a question that came in, it was from let me say, because I think I did write her name. No, she trains in City Guilds, but she's always afraid of customers who will pull apart her arrangements the way her examiners did.
Yeah, won't happen.
No.
Won't happen. They don't. No, we sell pretty flowers. They're actually quite easy to sell. It's,
Yeah.
we're not selling something that people don't like. Um, and we're the experts, they're not. So long as it looks like a beautiful arrangement, they are not going to see where our placements are or whether we've actually got our proportions spot on. But I think it's really hard to let go of that. And I think it's something that only comes with doing the job,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I think
learning to
so
not
too.
be quite so critical of yourself. And we all are. I don't know a florist that's not.
No, no. And yeah, like as I said, I've been catching up on recording podcasts now last week and this week. And that's one thing that comes up all the time is sort of confidence in their own
Mm,
work. And even Carolyn this morning, Bed Flowers on the Hill, and actually Pauline, I done a podcast with her as well. They said they're still nervous when they're handing over the bouquet to the bride. And I says, that'll never go. And it's like somebody who gets up on stage. I think the day that it goes, it's the day you become cocky and you
yeah.
don't think you're going to go wrong, you
I
know?
have never made a wedding bouquet that I like. Never.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
because I
no,
always look at it and think, oh, should have moved that over. Oh, should have had some of that. Always. But
yeah.
then that's what keeps you striving to be the best. And
That's
clearly
it.
my customers don't feel that because I did 58 weddings last year. I don't struggle to book weddings.
Yeah,
But I am very hypercritical of everything that I do. And the day that I stop caring that much is the day that my snips go down.
yeah, yeah. I just see one in the comments. It says like we need to stop comparing ourselves to each other, and I honestly do. I actually think we need to start embracing each other
Yeah.
and sort of saying. I actually think I'm just looking. I see Sharon's name is on the screen in front of me. I saw a bouquet that Sharon did, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I mightn't have liked the mix of colors that she did, but obviously that's what our customer wanted.
Mm,
So I think we need to stop saying, oh, that's crap or that wasn't very good and comparing ourselves to, because I think the day that that happens, I think we'll become a little bit more confident in our own work. And I think if we're confident in our work, we'll be confident in our charging,
yeah. Yeah, that's
you
very
know?
true.
And another question, and this was actually from Chris. He said data for basing. He always ends up overbuying, and he never is able to use them up because he was taught by us not to use
Yeah, no,
doubles
no,
in
no, no.
event
Yeah.
work or bouquets and stuff like that.
And I
Did
completely
you do
agree.
it? Did you do a book on basing, or is it in
No,
the
no, I
pipeline?
was going to do a basing Bible and it just hasn't happened yet. And,
Okay.
when I did my training 4 decades ago now, which is horrific to say, but we were always taught to write down whenever we did something, to write down how many bunches we had. But obviously it depends on the weight of your bunches as well, because a 60-gram bunch isn't going to cover as far as a 100-gram bunch. So,
Yeah.
but I use the old maxim that 20 stems will cover a square foot of 80 plus gram
Right.
chrysanths. And then you can usually work out where you need to be. If you know that those 20 stems will do a square foot, so long as you buy an 80, 85-gram, you'll be all right. It does help to know that. I
Yeah.
think the problem at the minute is because we're now down to very few growers that are growing Euro anymore, and we're now having to go into the Bonitas, the Balticas, the Pina Coladas. They're much bigger headed and they will cover further, but they're not quite as
Yeah.
good at the detailed work. I mean, I've been using Baltica lately, and I'm now down to 2 bunches a letter, whereas it would have been
Okay.
3 with Euros.
Yeah.
So
I
sometimes
know
your
we
variety
tell
makes a
our
difference.
students, module two, we would do basing. And we sort of say, if it's a 60-gram bunch, you've six heads. If you have a 70
Yeah,
gram bunch, you've seven heads, 80
yeah, it's
gram,
about
eight
right.
head, 90. And
Yeah,
that's sort of an easy sort of way
yeah,
of knowing. And then we sort of say, use the palm of your hand. So
yeah,
depending on the age of the flowers, how many flowers will cover that palm of your hand, and then count up on your base how many you think. I know it's a bit long-winded, but if you haven't a clue, it gives you a
yeah,
starting point and order in a few extra stems just
yeah,
to be
definitely.
feckin' well sure. Um, so there isn't going to be a basing Bible coming
There
yet.
may be. It may happen. Yeah. So long as I don't get
Okay.
58 weddings this year.
Again, there was more questions around confidence and that sort of, not feeling that they motivation and stuff. So I actually had a chat with Viv before we came on, and there's a girl that we have, and I'm saying this now, and I haven't even asked her, but in the past, a good few years ago, more around COVID, when obviously people were really struggling with their
Mm.
own mental health and stuff like
Mhm.
that. She's an NLP expert. She's a journalist. She's a coach. She's absolutely phenomenal. She helped me lose 6 stone many years ago. And she would have been a coach for me for quite a while. Danielle Serpico is her name. So I'm going to ask her about coming in and maybe doing a chat about into the geeky group, into it. I do another geek hour about around all that motivation and
Yeah.
confidence and stuff like that, because I think it'd be good for everybody, particularly like if times aren't good and it's hard for you to make a few quid and stuff like that. It's not always your fault. It just be the environment. So sometimes it's good for that. So we'll come back on more about motivation. Um, okay, back to weddings. Somebody wants to know when is the best time to actually make the bouquet? Morning before, of day before? What's your thoughts on that?
Depends what flowers I'm using, to be honest. Sometimes my wedding bouquet could be made 2 days before because if some sometimes the roses settle better and it looks at its peak. But it's about having the skill to look at your flowers and go, they're not quite there yet. They need more time. And obviously, once you cut your stems short, they're going to open out much quicker. So
Yeah,
sometimes if I'm pushed for time, or if I haven't been able to get the flowers in, early enough for whatever reason, because sometimes it happens, sometimes that particular flower's not available or whatever, then quite often I'll make the wedding bouquet and sit it in a vase and just let it relax.
yeah.
And then it will be at peak perfection. But I never make anything on the day of the wedding, ever.
Oh, yeah. And same, what about buttonholes and stuff? Would
Oh
same
yeah,
with those?
easily the night before, 2 days before, put them in a hydration chamber, they'll be fine. The only thing I
Yeah,
wouldn't do it with is Phalaenopsis because they are, you know, they mark
a
so
little bit
easily.
temperamental.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that they'd be done the night before.
And she also asked about arrangements. Now, I would be
Hmm.
sort of saying the week before.
Oh, I
Oh, well,
green up
green them
way
up
ahead.
anyway.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
green up way ahead. So that's the
yeah,
first thing I do. If I've got a big wedding with lots of tables, then I green up and it all goes outside on the patio table because then I can just turn the hose on it if it needs watering. And
yeah.
then I will put the flowers in later. And I have
Okay.
a production line system, so I will get everything together for each arrangement and then I will work from that pile because it's so easy to miss one flower out.
Yeah,
So everything is kind of portioned out. And then
yeah.
I just work with
And
that one board.
that's really key because and again, Jeanette would talk about this on module 4 that if you make one arrangement, you're always going to pick the best flowers. So
Yep.
your first 5 arrangements look
Yep.
absolutely amazing, and your
Yep.
last 3 arrangements look a bit miserable because of all the shite that's left.
Yeah, you
Where if
kind
you
of need
do
to
it,
mix the shite up a bit.
yeah. Bernie wants to know about the infinity ordering. Advantages and disadvantages. Does it make a difference to the quality?
It can. It can. So infinity ordering, I had to ask Bernie this because it's not what I know it as. So some places call it grower direct. And what you're doing is you're actually ordering your flowers direct from the grower. And they may already have been picked, or if you're using a pre-order direct to the grower, they may not have been picked yet. The main advantage is you won't pay auction fees on that because it's not been through the auction. So they usually are a few pence a stem cheaper. Quality can sometimes be too good, if that makes sense. So you might find that they are too fresh. So depending on what you need it for, you've just got to be a little bit wary because like Alstroemeria is a real case in point. If you order direct from the grower Alstroemeria, it's going to be showing very little colour, which is fine if you can let it sit for 4 or 5 days. But if you need it, it's perhaps not what you're going to want.
Yeah.
So you just need to be a little bit wary about the fact that it will be coming direct from the grower. It won't have been picked, packed to go to the auction, so it won't be drinking, that kind of thing. So it can
But
come in
isn't
a
it a
little bit
case that a lot
immature.
of the wholesalers now are buying direct from growers
Yeah.
that they're not going through the
Yeah.
auctions?
Yeah, because they're feeling the pinch too. It's hard for
Yeah.
wholesalers at the minute, and lots of small wholesalers have closed in the UK. I mean, we had one
Okay.
near me go into administration this year, and we've completely lost it. So they're having to
Right.
find ways to either import directly. So a lot of them are importing direct from South America now, and it's coming
Right.
into
Okay.
Heathrow and just being shipped out.
Yeah.
Or they're buying direct from the growers because again they're avoiding their portion of the auction costs as well, and those pennies add up.
Yeah.
So it does have its advantages in as much as if you can pre-order direct from the grower, then you can get exactly what you want. You just need to be a little bit wary about the fact it can sometimes come in a little bit immature and you might have to, get it open or whatever, give it a bit more time.
Okay, right. And another question around that, well, and actually was around the Ecuadorian roses. What is the best, and South African roses, or South American roses, sorry, roses. What is the best tips for conditioning them? Somebody was saying that she either finds that they don't open or that they open way too fast.
Yeah. And it's difficult because what you've got to think about with those South American roses is you're adding 72 hours onto their life for them being picked, packed, and then shipped. So already you're on the back foot a little bit. I love Ecuadorian roses and I very rarely buy anything but Ecuadorian. But you do need to know how to treat them. So they stay in their cardboard sleeve, take all the cellophane off, cardboard sleeve, overnight if you can do it, but at least 8 hours otherwise. Then take all the paper and the cardboard off. Now, the downside to that is if you've got a bad bunch, you're not going to find out until you then unwrap it. And sometimes, they can be a bit mouldy, a bit slimy.
Okay, yeah, good
Most
point.
wholesalers will give you 24 hours to complain, but then obviously you've
Yeah.
got to replace those roses. So what I normally do is I open the sleeve, the cardboard sleeve down the staple bit, and I
Mm.
just have a look and see what they're like. And then I tape it back up so that they're tight again. Because at least then I can check the quality and make sure that I don't need to make a claim or anything like that. But then make sure you stick it back together so that it's got the support as they drink, because they're very weak stemmed when they've not had a drink.
Yeah.
But then don't leave them in the cardboard because as they drink, they're going to start to expand and you're then going to bruise a lot of petals. So it's 8 hours at the very least, overnight if you can, but no longer than that.
And what about the leaves? Are you cleaning the leaves down at the first drink or on the second condition, like this when you take the cardboards off?
Or not at all if you may, because I'm a lazy
Say
cow and
again?
I admit to it. Or not at all if you me, because I'm a
Or not
lazy
at
cow
all?
and I admit to it. So I tend to take the bottom off that's going to be under the water, but those leaves are going to pull that water up to the head. So don't take too many off because you need that water going up. So if you're going
Yeah.
to do it, don't do it until later on.
Okay,
But
that's great
nine
advice.
times out of 10, I don't strip all the leaves off until I actually start laying the flowers out to make the bouquets.
Okay, Jeanette has a question there.
Okay, good few things here. So the first one is from Carolyn. I think she's in Ireland, and she wants to know: do we know anyone who rents out wedding flowers, as in the bridal party flowers, bouquets, etc.? It's something she's thinking of doing. I presume she means artificial or dried. Now, off the top of my head, I know two of our past, actually three of our past students who do it. Love Sight Flowers, she does it, and she'd have the whole package down to the arches, unity candle, etc. I know Adele Vintage Affairs, she does it, and the same thing. She would have like a lot of the arrangements in artificial for decorating hotels and churches. And I can't think of the girl's name in Wicklow, Deirdre. Remember, she made the gorgeous cake for us. Julie, I've just remembered it.
Oh,
Julie,
yes, yes,
she
yeah, Julie,
also
yeah.
does that.
And
But
evergreen silk plants also.
oh yeah, actually, and he has a huge market for it too. So there is people do it, Carolyn, and there is a market for it. But there's huge investment, you know what I mean, for all the different colours. And maybe if somebody else has anything that they can add to that, they might put it in the comments. Next question is Emma in the UK. She said, pricing as a new florist, it's her first year and she doesn't feel as skilled or as talented and she feels nervous about multiplying by three. Now, I actually know Emma because I trained Emma, and Emma, you are feckin' brilliant. You are talented. You are not unskilled. You know that way. You definitely are very, very creative. So really what you need is a kick in the arse, you know that way. Get your confidence kind of built up and don't feel guilty or imposter about multiplying by three. That's my answer to Emma. Celine from Tipperary wants to know about costing for delivery. So maybe we go back to Viv for that. Am I gone?
No, no, you're there. Viv, deliveries, costing for deliveries on weddings, I presume.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a set fee, which increases depending on how much further out I am. So all of my standard weddings that are in a 5 mile radius are £25 delivery and setup. But I make on the ones where it's just a drop and go, and there are lots of those. So if I'm going to be somewhere where I know it's going to be a 2 hour setup because they've got tables and arches, then I will add extra on for that. But my basic standard is £25. But I might only be in that hotel for 5 minutes. But
Yeah.
everybody pays that. And
Yeah.
not once have I ever had anybody query that or complain about it because they expect it because they've got to pay delivery and setup for the cake, they've got to pay delivery for the venue dresser. Everybody expects to pay it. So I have
Yeah.
this set £25 and that goes up if I go a bit further out. I mean, again, I'm quite lazy, so I don't go very far now because I don't need to. I choose to stay quite close now. If I was 30, it'd be different. I'd be much hungrier for it than I perhaps am at this stage in my career. But I do have the luxury of choice. But you should always charge delivery, and you need to make sure, even on those drop and goes, you're covering yourself so that you're making a little bit extra on those for those weddings where you might get stuck in traffic, you might have to take a detour because of an accident. So they cover all those eventualities that you haven't seen coming yet. So make sure that
Yeah.
your basic standard is a good price to cover you, and then you can go out in radius from there and increase the price.
I
And then,
agree with that. And I also, what I would often advise people is for delivery, is go nearly on a taxi price,
yeah,
exactly what a taxi would charge.
yeah,
Because then if you're ever stuck that you can't deliver the flowers
yeah,
yourself, that you can pay a taxi to do it. Another advice I would give, and I actually don't know what the rate is off the top of my head, but the revenue like say for people that, drive for a living, there actually is a rate per mile, per kilometre that you're allowed to kind of like claim or charge. And
yeah. It's
again, a lot of flower shops use
43
that.
pence a mile in the UK.
Yeah, I don't know what it is in Ireland, but a lot of florists would use that as a guideline. And Emma is saying, great advice, Viv. Anita is saying, imposter syndrome. To be honest, there's nothing wrong with imposter syndrome. The day you haven't got imposter syndrome, you're too cocky,
Yeah.
you're a bit of a know-all, and you need to be taken down a peg or two. So there's nothing wrong with imposter syndrome. Kirsty is saying she can't stop comparing. Kirsty, I compare. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes good, sometimes bad, the way. And a bit like imposter syndrome. I often look at things and I say, oh God, like, you know what I mean? That's better than what I can do. But there's a million things that I do look at and say, I could definitely do better than that. Emma says, unless the bride has a vision, she finds it daunting. And I suppose that's really only going to come with experience. A little bit of feedback on that, Viv. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think when you first start out, it's really hard, isn't it? Because it is scary because you're putting yourself out there, aren't you? And you know that you're all shaky and jelly-like inside, but they don't know that. You still know more than they do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to fake it to make it. So you go in with a big smile on your face and you be honest. If you don't know whether something's in season, although you could buy the Floristry Geek Flower Bible and then you would know when everything's in season. But if you don't know, don't say, or maybe say, I don't know, but I'll go and find out for you because people like you if you've got the balls to say, I don't know everything. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Absolutely. And like I always say to our students, the same thing with pricing. When you don't know the price of a particular flower, if you're pricing a wedding 6 months in advance and you're not sure what a hydrangea is going to be in August or whatever, or you just need to sometimes sit down and think about
Yeah.
it. I always say, I'm going to get on to my wholesaler to see what's the best price I can get you. In other
Yeah.
words, I'm going to sit on the toilet now and have a poo and think about it and come back to you in 5 minutes or whenever the time is. The next thing is Ireti, I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong, from London. She's a level 2 student at Capel Manor College. And she's trying to get, now she's a lot of courses that she's done, to be honest. She hasn't done a course with us. I think that's what our problem is. Only joking. But she's finding it a pain to try and get work experience. And she's just asking, did everyone go through college or are people self-trained? So maybe that is something people could maybe put in the comments there to help her out. Now, we have a question from Sharon. I'm going to fire this at Viv. How soon in advance for buying calla lilies? Calla lilies seem to be very popular this year. What's your advice on callas?
Depends what colours you're buying. If you're buying the Captain Ventura series, then you don't need to worry about opening them. If you're buying Column de Pay, you need 3 or 4 days to open those out. So they're two different types of colour. Column de Pay only come in white, but they're the really big ones that really make a statement, but they do need time to open because they come and they're very folded, whereas Captain Ventura are already exactly as you need them. So it very much depends on what colour it is you're looking for.
Great tip. Now, do you remember Jane, who I said had a full-time job and wanted to
Yep.
be full-time? Obviously, I'd taken up her question wrong. So what she wants really is tips on how to become a full-time florist. But she needs the confidence, obviously, that will she get enough work to pay the bills? And she's thinking of maybe or trying to open up a studio at home. Now, that's a bit like the million-dollar question. There isn't a straight answer there,
No.
Jane. I would never say to anybody to give up a full-time job to start off a business from scratch when there's
No.
nothing actually there started off from home, because you could find yourself like struggling at the beginning. Now,
Yeah.
this would be my opinion. Viv could say something different. And I would advise like is to build it up slowly but surely on the sideline, which is hard. It is difficult. And I know there's a lot of people in this group that have started off as a studio florist. Some of them have went on then to maybe open a full-time business. Some of them had it as a sideline, like what you're thinking about, working full-time and doing floristry as a sideline, which is tough because especially in Ireland, now she's in London, I know, but in Ireland, when we get funeral orders, the person had died yesterday and they're getting buried tomorrow or the next day. So we don't get the same sort of notice that you would get
No.
in the UK to organise yourself. But quickly, Viv, do you have any top tips on becoming a full-time florist and giving up a full-time job?
Yeah, you have to work bloody hard.
Mm,
I've been in business for myself for 10 years now as a studio florist, and for the first 5 years I worked a part-time job as well.
right.
And on Fridays I worked really hard because I was at my part-time job, which was actually in the horticultural industry. But I was also doing weddings as well, so I could be working till midnight. And eventually, I had enough momentum to be able to ditch the part-time job. But it took me 5 years, and it took me 5 years of really hard work. My first year in business, I did 3 weddings. My second year, I did 15, and
Well,
it's built on that. But
mm.
you've got to be willing to put the effort in. It isn't going to come to you. You've got to be consistent with social media posting. You've got to be consistent with networking with other wedding suppliers, doing wedding fairs. You've got to get yourself out there because it's not for the faint-hearted, and you do have to put your big knickers on and just get on with it.
Now, Celine was mentioning that the Flower Wholesale Group, which is a great group, by the way, has got the files on the number of stems that you need for basing. Do you remember somebody asked that
Mhm.
question? But again, I'm just going to go back over that. The biggest expert in the world can tell you it'll take 10 stems to cover a heart, a cross, a pillow, a cushion, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it depends on the variety. It depends on how mature the actual flowers are, and it depends on the weight or the grade. So it's very hard to compare like with like. So
It also
unless you're being
depends
told
on,
it's 10 stems of 80 gram of bonita
yep,
double chrysanthemum that are 5 days old, and then it'll take you 10 stems, well, then you'll know what the exact
yeah.
answer is. But
It
other than that,
also depends how you base as a florist, because we'll base slightly differently
that
with
is true
different
as well.
gapping,
Yeah.
different, different level of where you put your ribbon. We're all slightly different. So there
So
is
again, Viv is bringing
no.
out a book on it soon, so that'll answer
Thanks,
all
Janette.
our questions. Now, I this is my last one, Deirdre, but there's loads more after coming in. So this question I'm going to leave with you. Pamela from Cork wants to know, when you're giving an overall quote, would you give an individual breakdown of each item, or would you just give an overall price? Now, my answer there is I never give individual breakdown. I only give an overall price, but I'm going to pass it back to Viv and I'm going to get a few more questions ready.
Whereas I actually do an individual price.
There you
Yeah,
go.
so we're totally different, but we both know what we're doing and we're both making money at it. So go figure. Yeah, I think it's a very personal thing. And I also think it depends on the size of the weddings you do. And, it's much easier if you're doing a bigger wedding just to give them an overall price. But if you're doing smaller weddings, that's a little bit harder. So yeah, for me, I do price individually, but then I've got 40 years experience, as has Jeanette just about. I mean, I'm slightly older than Jeanette. So it depends really on your experience level as to where you're comfortable. And I sometimes think in the beginning it's easier to do an overall price because you've got a few more places to hide in that.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very true. This is another question I have here, and it was from Emma, and she's looking, and I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, Viv. But anyway, she's in the mid, she's doing C and G level two at the moment, Sitting Guilds level two at the moment, but she feels that there's not enough wedding work in it, and she wants to know, have you a recommendation for a wedding course?
Well, funnily enough, I
And that
know
is, and
there's two
I
Irish
took her name because
birds.
I says people think that I'm trying to plug myself here. So that question is in that thread. So go and have a look at it.
I know these two Irish birds who are quite good at what they do. And I put my hands up to the fact that I scared the shit out of them and went and did their wedding module after 35 years of being a florist.
Yeah.
And I don't
And
think
she
you
did
ever
scare the
had.
shit out of us. And I actually spoke recently. Who was I speaking to? Oh, it was actually Nicola from Bouquet. I was talking to her the other day, and we were talking about schools and training and stuff like that. And I was saying the day Viv booked onto our course, and we were like, "Now, who's talked about imposter syndrome earlier on?" We were like, "What the fuck? What's she doing?
Yeah.
What's she booking? Why is she booking onto a course? Oh, what are we going to do?" Oh, and we were literally dancing around the room as to say, Jesus, let's do this. Let what will we? And I'm like, let's just do what we do. We're
Yeah.
not changing
No,
anything. We'll do
no, I paid
exactly
full
what we
price. I
did.
paid exactly what anybody else
And
would
she paid
pay.
full price. She
Never
got no
asked for a
discount.
discount
You
because I
know,
wouldn't be
we
that
says we
rude.
didn't want any.
No.
We're always very clear about that we don't get
We're a
paid from
miserable
anybody.
cow, we are. We're miserable.
And the reason I did it is because I coach so many people, and I'll put my hands up to this, and the girls know this because I've been completely honest. I didn't think you could learn online, and boy, was I wrong. So after 35 years of making corsages, I changed the way I made my corsages, and I now do it Jeanette's way because it's better. And, I am not so arrogant that I think I know it all and I can't learn because I can always learn. I can learn from people who've only been doing the job 10 minutes because they might have a better way of doing something than I've got.
Yeah,
It doesn't
100%.
do to be cocky. And yes, go and book yourself onto Kay's Flower School wedding module, and you will be amazed, completely blown away by the amount of content that there is on that course for your money.
But just don't look at the notes because Viv pulled us up on our notes.
Yeah.
We asked her for feedback, and one of the feedback was that our grammar and spelling was atrocious in the notes. So thank God for ChatGPT now. They've all been rectified. Okay, another question. Eco-friendly mechanics for churches. And they take longer. This is what this person's saying. She finds that they take longer to do. She can't make them until she's on site. How should pricing be different for them?
I make them off site. It's all in your mechanics. So I do black plastic buckets, the free ones you can get from the supermarkets, and I wrap them in sheets of moss. And I either glue the moss on or I attach it with very fine real wire, and then I just shove the chicken wire in it so you can't actually see the bucket. And then you can either hide the bucket in an urn or you can leave the bucket as it is because it looks quite pretty. And sometimes I will attach a ivy plant to the top of it and let that trail down because then that's all the trailing bit done in one go. So that's nice and quick. And then I arrange in it and I just tip the water out to take it and just fill it back up again. It's all done. So it's
Yeah.
just in using the mechanics and making sure it's deep enough for you to be able to transport it without it rocking.
Yeah.
But I find that works really, really well for pedestals, urns, anything like that that needs to go in churches, to use those cheap plastic buckets. And you can reuse them because the moss just dries out and it
It
looks
just
fine.
dries out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we say in if you're going to a hotel, would most urns be of similar size that the bucket will fit
Yeah,
anyway, or
pretty
would you have checked
much.
that before?
Yeah, or you just ping them a quick message and say, I mean, most of the hotels I work at all the time, so I know the
So
sizing
you
of
know
what
them,
they've
yeah.
got. Yeah,
So
yeah.
for somebody that's it's their first time going to a
Yeah,
venue,
just
probably on
just
your
check
site
first.
visit,
Just say,
measure,
can you
bring your
just send me the
bucket with you
measurements?
and see
Yeah,
does it fit.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
that's great advice, yeah, because there is nothing. And you know what? It's not even just making up the arrangements on site; it's the clean up then
hmm
on site
yeah.
before, like that
I
as
try and
well.
do everything off site as much as I can, and then just
Yeah,
itivate when I get there.
love it, love it, love it. Um, okay, somebody wants to know that the cost of flowers is making bouquets look boring. She wants to offer something different to supermarkets, but obviously because
Yeah.
flower prices are gone up that she can't do the variety. What's your advice?
I use quite a bit of dried now in my bouquets because it works out quite cheap compared to having lots and lots of different varieties of um, fresh flowers. So I'll have scabious balls in, I'll have craspedia, bunny tails, that kind of thing. Linseed looks quite pretty, and you can get that dyed in all sorts of colours. And it just lifts the slightly more boring flowers because I totally understand what she's saying. The costs are so high at the minute that you do end up being stuck with, you know, carnations, chrysanthemums, thistle. It's all a bit
Yeah.
muchness because you just can't make it financially viable otherwise. But also you need to look at what your base level for your bouquets are. Marks and Spencer's bouquets now are around the £40 mark, whereas
Yeah.
they used to be the £25 mark. So,
Yeah.
we all need
I
to accept that we sell a luxury product now.
No sound. Deirdre, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, there
Oh,
was no
you're back
sound there
again.
for a few
You had no
minutes.
Oh, I'm
sound for a
back.
minute.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. So what I had said was that a €25 bouquet is actually really just a bunch of flowers. It's not a
Yeah,
bouquet,
yeah, no, it's not.
you
No, you
know?
can't aquapack anything at that price.
No, definitely not.
Absolutely not.
Just then a lot of questions came in about wreath classes and mechanics for Christmas, but I think we'll keep that back till coming up to Christmas
Yeah.
next year. We'll go into more detail. Jeanette,
I
what
have some
about,
when you're ready.
yeah, go on.
Okay, Deirdre wants to know where's the best place to buy urns and pedestals. Now, if you're in Ireland, I would probably say Harold Ellam's, which is in Bluebell Industrial Estate. They would probably have the best selection, but a lot of the other wholesalers do have like a catalogue that you can actually go on and pick them. We've often bought stuff in from UK floral supplies ourselves, but maybe I think this girl is in the UK, so maybe Viv, you might have contacts for urns and pedestals in the UK.
Yeah, Holstons are very good. So there's a company called Holstons, but also instead of just checking out floristry supplies, look at venue dresser supplies,
Oh,
because
good.
they often have things like that, and they tend to be a bit cheaper than the floristry suppliers are.
Great tip,
Yeah.
brilliant. Now, Celine did message me before the Zoom actually started, and she's after getting it's going to be the wedding of the wedding of the wedding of the year next year, and they're going to have content creators, and they're coming from abroad, and they're getting married in Ireland. This is a fantastic opportunity. So we need all our thinking hats on, but it's going to be garden party style, and she's looking for ideas. Now, off the top of my head, I would definitely say meadow boxes and eye runners and large, different, varied shaped baskets. But Viv, off the top of your head,
No, that's exactly where my head took me as well. So definitely meadow boxes, and maybe a crescent of flowers made out of meadow boxes instead of an arch or a moongate because they're a bit has been
yeah,
now, aren't they? And it's now all the crescents of flowers on the floor that stand
on the
up.
floor, yeah,
Yeah,
actually, and
Floor
I've
arches,
seen.
I think they
yeah.
call them, or
Is
floor
Yeah,
that what
aisles.
they
Sarah
Yeah.
call them?
Campbell
Good,
in
good.
Intrigue, she actually had it, and where she had the flowers a lot higher at the back
Yeah.
of, say, the horseshoe, if you want to call it, and then lower in the front. And what we did when we did our meadow boxes was we used window boxes, plastic
Mm,
window boxes that didn't have holes in them. And well, actually, the ones we bought did have holes in them, but
We
we
glued
sealed
them.
them up, and we put floral glue into the holes, and then we covered them in chicken wire and moss on the outside. We used them umpteen times we've had, and it looked real kind of garden and natural instead of like plastic containers
yeah.
or cement containers. So containers covered in moss and chicken wire, I think is a great idea. Um, Karen wants to know how can she make herself stand out. There's a lot of like florists in her area, and she wants to make herself a little bit different.
Just be you, because there
You,
isn't another Karen. There might be lots of other florists, but there's only one Karen.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Jay
you will
loves
do
the
things
the
in a
bit.
different way to anybody else because that's who you are. Sometimes it's about having confidence in what you do yourself and who you are. And that's easy for me to say at my stage of my career. But trust me, I get imposter syndrome just like anybody else does.
Mm.
But people buy because they like you and what you do, not because there's another 10 florists, and we all have a space in this industry somewhere. So I would say hone your skills and find out what your signature style is. My signature style is actually lots of very small filler flowers. It's not the big things for me. I am a very textural florist. So whatever your strength is, whatever your style is, play to those strengths because somebody out there is looking for that.
Great
Yeah,
tip.
love it.
Jay loved your comment about the big knickers, and she's going to ask over in the Geeks the tips about opening up the home-based studio because
Yep.
there's that is quite
Yeah,
intense, that
massive.
question.
Yeah.
Aretti from London, she said the online learning scares her, but we're making it all sound like a treat. And there was great comments from Olivia, Hazel, Bridget, Catherine, Celine, Noreen, all saying that they loved the online learning and that they learned loads. Now, good
Look,
question
where
here.
else can you learn to do a wedding bouquet while having a bath with a glass of wine? Come on.
Cherie has a question. Best mechanics for milk urns. Now, what I have used for milk urns, I used the black top hat plastic
Yep.
container from Oasis with
Yep.
a smaller jumbo block of Oasis in it, and it just sits perfect on top of it, and you can have lots of trails. But I think your idea of the plastic bucket would also, but you'd have to measure it first to make sure that the
Yeah,
bucket fits down
children's
into it.
sandcastle buckets work quite well in
Great
milk
idea.
urns. So I've got a couple of, that I've bought at the beach, and I've just covered those in moss as well, because obviously they're hideous bright colours, but they're the right size to sit in the top of a milk churn.
Olivia is
Amazing.
loving the idea of the bath and the bottle of wine. Areti wants to know, do we do physical classes? We actually don't, Areti. I'm probably saying your name wrong. Only at Christmas time, but throughout the year, all our classes are online and we'd have students from all over the world. Emma is saying, I think your style evolves as you go along. Absolutely. And a bit like when Deirdre was talking about Carolyn from Florist on the Hill. Again, she has a particular style and that's her signature style. And the customers who go to her definitely wouldn't like, say, Viv's style and vice versa.
Yeah.
There's just so many questions coming in here, Deirdre.
Can't keep up with it, Janette. Let me see. I don't have any. I don't think I have. I'm just going to go through here now to see if I any other questions.
Aoife is asking
Oh,
about flowers in teacups for centerpieces. Definitely a great idea. The only thing is, I find if you have lots and lots of small arrangements, to me, it's a pain in the arse making up lots and lots of small things. But obviously, when you put them together in a group, you're going to get the impact. But like they are a nice idea, but sometimes for large tables, I think they would be a little bit lost. But Viv, come back on. What do you think about flowers in teacups?
I think they look beautiful, and I think in the right setting they can be great. And I've done them for quite small, intimate weddings where they've maybe only had one table. The problem with doing lots of them is to make an impact on a table, you perhaps need three, but that actually takes up quite a lot of space just because of the diameter of the saucer. And you've got to think about all the other things that have got to go on the table, the vegetable, the wine bottles, all of those things. So sometimes they're not the most practical thing for a wedding.
Yeah.
Quite nice for a baby shower, though, I feel.
Yeah, I think maybe
or
a
hen party.
smaller.
Yeah.
Jenny Mannion says that Janette and Deirdre could teach a cat how to do floristry. Their courses are that good. Thanks, Jenny.
I have one more question, and actually, this one came in just before I come on by email, and it was Rachel. She says, quoting for weddings, getting ghosted. She realised that it is couples shopping around, or it could be other florists checking out her prices. Are you open to prices from? Should you be giving your prices from the very first, or how do you get around it? So, in other words, you're getting those
I give not a
generic
shit about
emails
giving.
in.
Yeah, I give not a shit about giving my prices out because so what?
Yeah.
We all charge about the same, to be fair.
Yeah.
There is a limit to what we can charge. Yes, if we're doing huge weddings, for royal families or whatever, the sky's the limit. But your bog standard couple, they're all going to be looking about the same. And I don't worry about it. The only thing I would say is that because ghosting has become a bit of a thing, and it is bloody rude. It does annoy me. Luckily for me, it doesn't happen very often. But I think the more slick your processes are, the less likely they are to ghost you.
Yeah.
So it's about having a good consultation form. It's about having a good inquiry form. It's about being open and transparent. So when people approach me, they get a price list, they get an inquiry form, and I give them very specific instructions as to what to do to take it to the next stage. And then if they have a Zoom call, I don't see anybody in person now. I do it all by Zoom because I'm not wasting the time. They can have me in person when they've paid the booking fee. But up until that point, it's Zoom because it suits me and it's my business
Yeah.
and I'm running it my way. And actually, most couples are quite happy with that because they're all time poor now, and quite often they're not close, so they don't necessarily want to make a journey. So we do a quick Zoom call, and I will give them a mood board, which I build on Pinterest, and a proposal. And then it's over to them. I don't chase them. If after 14 days, it actually says at the bottom of my proposals, if I haven't heard from you and you haven't booked in 14 days, I release your date back into the wild.
Mm.
That's
Very
Yeah.
it.
good.
We're done.
Carolyn Magic from the UK is asking, how can you give a quote for weddings that are in 26 and 27? Now, Leonie kind of has responded there. She has a wedding for 28 already, and she's added on a small bit more on this year's price. We have Jen, I think it's Jen Adams. She's 66 and she wants to know, is she too old to start? Do we think you've only got a few years on me and Viv? We're about the same age, so never too old.
Nah.
And I think Celine has said that to her. You're never too old to start. Back to the quotes for 26, 27, 28. Viv, what do you
Well,
think?
you've got two ways of doing it. You either have to add on a percentage, and I kind of think 10% a year at the very least is what you need to be looking at on current prices. So if you're quoting for 2 years' time, it's 20%. If you're quoting for 3 years, it's 30%. Or you say to them, I cannot give you a definite price because we are too far away from your wedding date. I will firm that up. It's whatever you're comfortable with
Mm,
and whatever your skill set and your experience allows you to do comfortably.
And
yeah,
I would
no,
also, on that note, I would have a very tight contract on you having the ability to change the prices. If we had something like COVID hit
Yeah,
or another
yeah.
war or
It's in my
something like
terms and
that,
conditions. Yeah,
you, yeah, in the terms and conditions is in unforeseen circumstances, whatever, that the prices can be
yeah,
adjusted because we've all learned, like from COVID and from the Ukraine war,
yeah.
like the way prices went through the roof, that we just can't really go that far ahead. And I know we sort of look at prices now and sort of say they couldn't go any more, but we all
Who
thought that,
knows?
like, who
Mm,
thought that we bought be buying Germany for like 10 pence and now we're
mm.
paying a euro and 10 pence for them,
Yeah, I
like,
think they've just changed the tariffs for the UK. So there's seven
oh
flowers that
yes,
now
I
have
saw
tariffs
that.
on them, and they have managed to bring five of them down from 3% to 1%. Chrysanthemums are still at 3%, but I think that's because that's too much of an earner for the growers to want to change that one. So that will help a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Somebody is asking, what to do? I have the chat actually turned on now. When are you, Odifa, when are you three going to do an in-person workshop?
Can you imagine?
Do
We'd
you
never
know
get
what? It
anything
costs
done.
too much money. Is it have to pay for it?
Yeah,
Where this is
this is
like,
free.
it's free and we're all, Jeanette's in Spain, I'm in Dublin, Viv is in England, like, so it works. It works for everybody. Is there anybody in the bath?
well, somebody's asking about wine there a second ago. Can't see her question there. She's asking about wine. Loads of comments about the age. Lots of people in their 50s and their 60s, that way, that are doing flowers. So you're among friends anyway.
Yeah.
Um, they're all
And
saying
we
never
see it
too old.
ourselves, Jeanette, in like with us, like most people coming to us to train as florists are not teenagers and school leavers. They are career changing or retiring or in a place in their life that they just want to do something else. And I know there is an apprenticeship program in the UK. They're working on an apprenticeship program here in Ireland, but there's always going to be nobody who is in their 30s or 40s, 50s or 60s wants to go back to do an apprenticeship, and you shouldn't be eliminated because of your age. So you have got the likes of us, and I see the Cambridge School, Leafy Couture. I see them all in here watching today, and yeah, look at go for it.
Where was that question I had? Somebody's in. They're not in the bath, but they're in the bathroom plugging their top.
There's Anita.
Stop lip. I've lost the question I was going to ask there a second ago. Okay. I know what it was. Noreen, and maybe other people in Ireland, but Selena's wishing Noreen the best of luck. Sarah Campbell in America is offering a scholarship. Now, today was the cut-off point. I'm not sure what time today. So I know there was Jen from County Kerry in Ireland was able to avail of the scholarship when Intrigue came to Ireland, and it was absolutely amazing. Even though we were involved, I have to say it was absolutely fantastic. And she's now offering a scholarship for Intrigue across America for one of the places, and you get a choice of picking what state you want to go to. So if it's still open, today was the last day, but I'm not sure if they're 6 or 8 hours ahead of us or behind
5 hours behind us, yes.
So there might be still time to enter it. So go on to Intrigue Teaches on Instagram, and the link is there. And the best of luck, Noreen. We'll all be behind you if you go.
We'll all be rooting for you. Oh, absolutely. But listen, guys, it's 8:15. I hope you have got something from this, that you've learned something. I will be sending it out on the replay, because we really did quick fire through a lot of those questions, because there was just so many. And we would love your feedback in the Floristry Geek, and how you found the Zoom, and was it beneficial, and what would you like to see more of? Because Viv is a bit shy about selling herself and selling her knowledge. And you do know that selling herself as a coach, not as a florist, she can sell herself as a florist, but she gets imposter syndrome when it comes to her knowledge as a coach. And she does do mentoring sessions that are really good value. She does do coaching. She does lots of things. She does this for her students. I'm going to say this, and I hope that it is the case for the Floristry Geeks as well. But we say you're starting out and it's your first wedding. You can book Viv before you go to the consultation and talk about, this is what they're sort of looking for, this is what they're saying. And then after the consultation, you book her again. And anyone that has done it, and I can't remember how much it was, but they said by buying the flowers and costing the flowers, that Viv's money they made more money than it cost to book Viv for those 2 hours.
It's £50
for people starting out with their first wedding. How much is it, Viv?
It's £50 an hour.
£50, yeah.
And we can literally break it down to me telling you how much you need to order of each thing. And I did do that for one of your...
there from Leonie and Celine and Noreen, who all used Viv in the past. It's in the comments.
Yeah. And I can literally break it down for you, and I can tell you what weight to buy and how you can maximize buying sometimes a higher weight over a lower weight. Although it's pence more, you'll get loads more flour. So I can guarantee you will save more than the cost of having me hold your hand through that session.
Yeah, like our past students have used this, and it's an absolute phenomenal service. So if you're worried about a wedding, or you're worried about, what to be buying in, or weddings at particular times, definitely avail. She obviously has her Bibles and the buyer's Bible, the cake Bible. She has all of those there. When I'm sending out the replay for this, all them details will be in that as well. But Viv,
also, Deirdre, just explain about joining the Floristry Geek, because there could be a lot of people here that are not in the Geek.
Okay, yeah. So Viv also runs the Floristry Geek group. It is a very strict group, but it's a very educational and productive group. You need to be a florist or a florist in training. It's not open to somebody who's just buys a bunch of flowers in Tesco's and decides to arrange them or make a flower crown or something like that. It's not open to people like that. It's for serious. So the questions that are asked are really good. They're not stupid questions, but they're really good questions. And they're also answered very politely and very informatively and very educationally. So if you're not a member of the Floristry Geek and you are a florist or florist in training, you really need to be going over there. Now, if you're looking for somewhere for fun with flowers and you are a hobby florist, or you just do a little bit at home, we have what we call as the Flowery Fun Group. And that's exactly what it is. We don't give feedback. We don't talk about where you buy in wholesalers. We don't do any of that. If you post a beautiful bouquet of double chrysanthemums, we will say it's beautiful. Because we're not there to give you feedback. It's for people who love flowers and want to post up their arrangements for fun. So that's what the Flowery Fun Group. But if you're serious about you as a florist, you go over to the Floristry Geek.
Yeah, there's some questions to answer.
Sorry, just questions to answer, Viv. Yeah, Sorry,
Sorry.
Janette, 1 second. When you go over to the Floristry Geek,
Yeah.
there is questions that you do need
Yeah.
to answer. She has got an admin team who actually check that you do have a
Yeah.
Facebook page, or you
Yeah.
are in training,
We
or
do. We're
whatever you're
very
doing.
strict. Very
When you
strict.
go to the Flurry Fun group, there is questions to answer, but they're really just to keep out the spam and the Viagra and the Ray-Ban sunglasses and all of that brigade for the questions in the Flurry Fun group. Jeanette, what are you going to say?
No, I'm just saying there's lots of great feedback there about Viv's mentoring, about Viv's group, and they're posting the links, etc. But I presume that you will put the details in the email
Yeah.
that you'll send out tomorrow. And again, people are saying just buy all the Bibles from Viv, that they
Bless you.
recommend them. They find them brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll have to polish my ego tonight, won't I? Don't worry, I'll go downstairs and Mr. B will put me straight back in my box. So don't worry
More
about it.
comments about the knickers as well, by the way. The big knickers is definitely going. We always say they have to be red knickers, by the way. Deirdre,
Oh
do you
yeah,
think
we
it's
always say red
wrong?
knickers. If you're feeling lacking in confidence, or you're need a little bit of grounding, red is a very grounding color. When I done my teacher training years ago, I remember, and we had to stand up and do a presentation. And I remember it like that. I was shitting myself, and I had a white suit, and somebody said to me, "Wear red knickers." She says, "I'm telling you, it'll ground you." And it definitely worked. And I know there's a wholesalers here in Ireland that is a really tough wholesalers to get into, and you need to have a business, and they nearly look for your VAT number on your top for getting in. And I remember one of our students sending us an email saying, "I got in, I wore red knickers and I got into them," So yeah, red knickers if you're looking for confidence.
Douglas has just put up a comment to say he has no red knickers, but I'm sure red jocks will do the same job, yeah?
I'm sure they will, yeah. And red shoes. Listen, guys, thanks a million. Absolutely loved tonight. I hope you got as much out of it as we did, because we learned, and it shows you just never know it all. Viv, your final words.
Be happy and love what we do, because we are so lucky to work in this crazy, wild industry and be a part of such special days for everybody. And I never take that for granted. Every bride is an honour, every funeral's an honour.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks a million. And we'll let you know when the next